Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of the as yet untitled Adam Savage Project.
I think we should call it still untitled.
Still untitled.
Remain still
colon.
untitled. Yes.
The Adam Savage. I'm Will. Adam's here.
Hello.
Norm's here.
Hello.
We're here in Adam's workshop, man cave, studio. I don't know.
Studio. You know, I've been getting some interesting Twitter responses that it doesn't seem like that many people object to man cave.
Yeah.
No, it's a vocal minority.
Yes.
Very vocal though. Seems like
We just call it man cave. Don't even address it.
I also noticed that dudes sometimes say, "It feels weird to tell you this, but I wish I could visit your man cave."
yeah, we get a lot of that.
Okay, that does sound a little weird.
that's
Especially over the internet.
That's awkward for everyone involved.
Spelunking. It looks a little different since the last time we were here.
Yeah. I have been altering the topology of the shop here. And it's mostly just in the way I've inhabited it. It's funny. Everyone asks, "Oh, how long have you been here?" And I say, a year and a half. And they're like,
Wow, really?
Are you kidding? It looks like you've been here for like 15 years. And that's just a function of like
That's
when
by
I move-
design.
Yes, I move in and I create this visual cacophony, and then I'm quite happy in it. But things were really unsettled, and there was big piles of stuff that had been undealt with. So I have started to deal with them, and I'm actually going to do some renovation in here. I've added 7 new Billy bookcases from IKEA. It's the
Okay.
cheapest glass front bookcase that you can possibly get, and they're great.
Yeah.
Once you mount them to each other and mount them to the wall, they're pretty solid.
Yeah, particle board back and
And the glass shelves. The glass shelves look really nice. It
shelves-
opens it up.
That glass shelves yeah. The whole idea is that it should feel a little like a museum, somewhere between a special effects museum and a British study, right?
interactive museum.
Bones and
Once upon a time, my grandmother rather, drugged me to what I thought was going to be a horrible
I
afternoon.
thought you said she drugged you.
Well, that too, but that's a whole different podcast. She took me to this. It was the house of somebody who was incredibly wealthy in the 20s.
Right.
And they had room after room after room after room after room of china on glass shelves, well lit. And I didn't think China was interesting, but then I started walking around and looking at it and like paying attention to the stuff that was different. And when it's displayed right, you can see the evolution of this art over centuries. In this case, it was interesting. And if you get the same kind of vibe here, then that's a good thing.
That's, yeah. So I like the place to be overwhelming, but you also need to be able to parse it. And it was getting so full of projects that I had not even begun. I just moved in and didn't have any place to put them, that it got out of hand. So I've been spending a fair bit of time this summer. Every time I can catch an hour, I'll come over here and push stuff around.
So, and it's happening even as we speak.
It is
There
happening.
are people
Martine
walking
is-
around behind us.
Martine behind us is working on archiving and cataloging and arranging the collection so that it's actually visible. Right now, everything's way too crowded. It's why we're getting more of the cases so that things have space to breathe. You can walk around. You can really see what they are. And
We'll show that in the man cave.
when we finally do the full
videos.
tour,
Yes.
then you'll get to see that.
Exactly. I got up this morning while you were being productive and went to the movie theater and watched Prometheus at 9:35 in the morning.
Which is, I think, the very definition of the opposite of productive.
It's the opposite of productive.
Now you watch the early morning movie is delightful.
Sunday morning, it was $6. It cost more to park than to go to the movie. I was amazed.
Didn't they validate?
No, they don't validate at the Metreon. Are you kidding?
Oh, I almost never go there anymore.
9:30. It was the earliest showing, so 9:35.
Because I always go to the Sundance Kabuki now.
I love the
because You
Kabuki.
can reserve your seats, and that's huge to me.
Well, and it's
That's
fantastic. Do you sit in the balcony?
When I can get seats up there.
Yeah.
But a good portion of the time I just sit downstairs. I just sit wherever I can get, the seats in a row right where I want.
Some people don't know. Sundance Kabuki is a theater in San Francisco. It used to be an AMC until they opened the AMC 1000 like multiplex about 15 years ago, and then Robert Redford's company Sundance bought it and renovated it, and now it's a host to international film festivals.
Yeah.
And
You can drink beer and watch a movie there.
That's really so civilized, the idea that you can drink beer and watch a movie there.
I do that at home. Why
21
can't I do that
plus.
at the theater?
exactly.
Yeah.
Good
and-
seats.
And you can reserve your
Yeah.
seats in advance, which
Yes.
means you can show up for a 7:30 movie at 7:28.
Yeah, and there is no pre-show, advertising before. It just demands that you buy the tickets in advance.
Yeah.
Well in advance, not last minute.
And I really don't mind doing that. I've done a lot of that.
Well, and since Gina hurt her back, the nice thing is the reserved seating is the seat where you can stand because they have seats for people who only can stand and watch movies.
Oh, wow.
Is not in a terrible spot, and it's up in the balcony, so you get to drink beer, and it's reserved, and I can sit next to her in the whole 9 yards. It's fantastic.
That's great.
So,
So you sat there and watched Prometheus
all by myself.
So I'm trying to remember who told me this. There's a question that you can ask someone who's seen Prometheus that if the movie already didn't suck to them, it will ruin it for them, which is, tell me this. Why did anyone in that movie do anything?
Yeah, see, no, there's no reason. There was Noomi Rapace was looking for God.
No, she.
Hold on. We should preface this by saying this is going to be
spoiler heavy. And the
Spoiler
movie's been out
alert.
for a month and a half.
We're about to spoil a terrible movie for you.
Adam has. There's no question about your opinion on this movie.
It is.
So you're saying you didn't think it was very good?
I'm saying I think that it could improve if you watched it in another language with English subtitles.
Oh yeah,
and made up your own movie in your
Because
head.
the dialogue is so bad, and the character quote unquote motivations are so wooden. It is. You know what? Everyone screws up from time to time. And Damon Lindelof, I love his writing. I'm a big fan of so many things he's done. And Ridley Scott too. Honestly, many of his films are in the list of the most important films in my life as a film lover.
Which we're going to talk about at some point in the future.
Yes.
We're going to do a big blowout talking about that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Movies will be a really
Homework.
big fat thing to talk about.
So-
but in this case, this movie, this is the term Ewok bad. Like,
Ooh.
did anyone during the production of this go, why is this why is this like this?
Well, they did though, because it's so heavy-handed in other stuff. Like the setup for the exciting conclusion. Is anybody here? I apologize if we're going to ruin this movie for anybody who, but it's not worth worrying about ruining.
No.
In the beginning, when they cover the fact that she's sterile and that Charlize Theron's suite is also a lifeboat. And literally they hit all of the points. So you're like, oh, okay, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And then they're going to eject that. And
There's the gun on that mantelpiece. There's the gun on that mantelpiece. There's the gun on that mantelpiece.
So somebody asked that, but they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. They just looked at the surface level and didn't go down
Ridley
into meaning.
Scott, the people who were the top people for the creatives behind this movie. So Ridley Scott, Damon Lindelof, and John Splates, I think, is the other writer, co-writers. No one says no to Ridley Scott. He's at a point in his life, like a Steven Spielberg, where if he makes a movie, they're going to let him make whatever movie he wants. Fox will throw money at him because it's Ridley Scott's return to science fiction.
I know.
He was a pioneer, so you can't say no. There's a great story about Steven Spielberg, for example, when he was directing Munich, right? And you can't say no to people surround him. They're all yes men. So have you seen Munich?
I have not seen Munich.
There's a literal
it's great.
climax of the movie where Eric Bana he's having sex with his wife, and one of those things where Steven Spielberg directing a sex scene does not make sense, and no one says no to him. Mm-hmm. And same thing for this movie. People just didn't say no to Ridley Scott.
That's what I have to assume. This goes back to a discussion I had with a bunch of my ILM colleagues years ago. We were talking about some of our favorite movies by our favorite directors. So it's indisputable that Jaws really established the modern horror movie arc. For hiding the monster until the end, the building of suspense, the focus on character development, humor as a counterpoint. All of these things reached this incredible maturity in Jaws, and half of it was by accident. Right? The shark didn't work until day 45 of shooting or whatever it was. They had to work around the fact that they had all these shots planned that they couldn't do. Thus, Spielberg got really creative and pulled this, made this incredible silk purse out of us, what seemed like it was going to be a saucier. The Godfather. I mean, so many people's in so many top fives, in many people's favorite film of all time. And Coppola describes the directing of that as like the most stressful and awful thing that ever happened to him. The studio wanted to fire him every day. He had very little control or they fought him on all his casting decisions. He thought he was going to be fired every single day he was filming it. And he's not even that happy with that movie. It's not the kind of film he wants to make, which is that's his prerogative.
Mm-hmm. It's a storied and labored
But there is
process.
something about, we came to this conclusion that many of our favorite movies were made with the director had a literal gun to his head.
Well, sometimes the things that make something
gun to his head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe not. You never know. Mario Puzo's estate may have some little more weight than we think. a lot of times the things that add challenge and stress are the things that define the creation of something. And the thing about the shark not being working until day 45 of Jaws is absolutely, if that shark had worked the first day, it would be a completely different film.
Yeah.
Because it would be they wouldn't be able to not show off the shark, and that's what happens with a lot of CG stuff.
Well, so I mean, I were down, and we'll talk a little bit more about Prometheus, and we're started going to all this framework. But so when I think about these kind of things about people that no one says no to, I think about the fact that when I'm working with Jamie, that's all we do to each other is say no to each other. We fight and we bicker and we drive each other nuts about it, and it totally drives me crazy. So there are times when like I go out and I film something like The 1,000-Year-Old Man, where people are have a lot more deference to me than they have on my own set, and I think, well, this is quite nice. Isn't this nice? Then I realize this is where it gets dangerous. You think after a certain period of time, you should be able to not have to fight with anyone about the thing you want to do. No, that's totally wrong thinking. You have to fight over every idea to make sure that it's good. That has an inherent integrity to it, and
It's not the creative process.
if no one's checking you, you're in great danger.
Well, if you're in a place where everybody agrees, and it doesn't have to be with one person, it can also be a committee situation where you have 5 people that are like, "Oh, that's a fantastic idea, Biff," and that's a fantastic, and then you end up with these horrible monstrosities like I don't want to name names, but summer blockbusters with 12 screenwriters on them, and they're awful.
Yeah,
Awful.
Oh wait, which one was that?
I was thinking about Clash of the Titans, actually, but
I watched.
you could have applied it to anything.
I watched Wrath of the Titans with my son in a hotel room, and even my 13-year-old son was like, "That was terrible."
Yeah. So I was on a plane a few weeks ago, and I had the choice between watching John Carter of Mars and Wrath of the Titans, and it was really a hard choice.
I've been dying. I haven't seen
No, John Carter of Mars is that's a fine movie. It's marketed poorly.
It was not. Have you watched it?
Yes,
I'm looking forward to seeing it. A friend of mine was one of the writers, and I'm a big fan of Andy Stanton. Yeah. And so I have high hopes that I will like it more than I've been led to believe.
People didn't know what that movie was coming in from the first trailer on. Cowboys and Aliens did poorly, so they didn't want to push the Civil War versus Aliens aspect of it. Hollywood punished it because Andrew Stanton, again, people didn't say no to him. He had complete control. First live action movie, and they were more forgiving for Pete Berg's Battleship because that was the movie made by the comedian.
Peterson. William Peterson?
Oh no, Pete Berg. Or,
Pete Berg. Yeah, right. I forgot Pete Berg.
On Battleship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both didn't make money.
I just want to know if Liam Neeson said the line. I didn't see it, but he had to say "You sunk my battleship" in there sometime, right? I mean, it has to happen in a movie like that. You can't not do that.
Yeah, I would also be looking for sneaking other 70s toy commercial classics, and they're like pretty sneaky, sis.
Yeah. Or what if all of a sudden there's a hippo on the deck of the aircraft carrier and it's hungry. Yeah, who knows?
Have you? This is a total aside. Have you read the website of a detailed statistical analysis of game playing of trivial games?
No.
It's a status. A mathematician takes on optimal strategies for things like shoots and ladders.
Connect 4, hopefully.
Not Connect 4, but it's all these great games that we grew up with.
So it's like the Game of Life and Clue. And
so let's go back to Prometheus.
Okay, it's probably a good idea.
I feel like it was beautiful. I think it was gorgeous. I loved Janty Yates, the costume designer. Her spacesuits,
the blue,
were beautiful, and the helmets. And in the helmets, and I bought the book about the art from the movie because I'm thinking about making one of those helmets for myself. And
that's a hard helmet to make.
Oh
with
yeah,
the dome
it's
like
ridiculous.
That. Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm actually curious about how they did all the clear parts because, you can't just simply vacuum form clear plastic.
Yeah.
You can't see through it. But
so production
they were
design.
referring, and I found out because I thought when I saw the design for those spacesuits, they're referring to Things to Come, the famous 40s futuristic sci-fi movie, and they totally were.
Yeah.
And that kind of lineage to the design and the beautiful. I thought the ship Prometheus was gorgeous.
Oh, amazing!
It definitely felt like a sister to Nostromo. Yeah. I had a huge thrill the first shot of the bridge as the planet comes into view because it's Ron Cobb's original bridge design for Alien that was deemed too expensive to do when they were first doing Alien.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Absolutely. You can, if you open up the book The Art of Alien, there is that bridge
first
from the
one.
Prometheus, it's the 2-level California home, sort of with the
Yeah.
planet out the window.
With the well, with the yeah. The thing about the design on that movie specifically is I thought it did an amazing job of bridging the future that we know from Alien, but the rich person's version of that, the 1% version of the Nostromo, right?
Yes.
And then like it was definitely not too far in the future that it was out of view from today. Like nothing seemed unbelievable except for things like the magic doctor box and stuff like
production
that.
design was wonderful. And you
The
saw
production,
it from
the
trailers,
interiors were total. There's so many little bits called back to Nostromo, and I really
Well, even just the shots too. You
Yeah,
know, when
yeah.
everyone's in hibernation and panning over the computer screens, the slow stuff. Of course, CG. If you rewatch Alien and it is the model moving slowly in space, there's a charm to that doesn't capture perfectly.
no, and so then we get to the beginning of the movie, and you get the
You're talking about the very beginning of the
very
cold
beginning,
open. Okay.
right?
So
So
the very beginning is the engineer who kills himself. He drinks the fluid, and this
now
is
his makeup was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was practical.
Oh.
I'm actually so inured to believing that everything's going to be bad CG.
Yeah.
That it was. I thought it was actually a little bit of a missed thing because the way they lit it and color timed it, just totally felt like it was CG. It's sort of like,
Well, he felt alien.
do you remember? Yes. Do you remember in Alien 3? Right.
The Fincher one.
The Fincher one.
Yeah.
They resuscitate Bishop, right? And she has a conversation with Bishop, but he's on a table,
Wait,
right?
that's-
But it's one of the most beautiful animatronic torsos ever built, but they put it on a table, which means you didn't know that it was.
That's
you-
two.
There was no
Alien two.
suspension of disbelief. You're like, oh, it's what's his name with his head through a table.
Well, it's the end of 2 at the beginning of 3, but the animatronic one was in 3.
yes. Okay, so.
I didn't know that was animatronic. I thought it was just a dude
I know.
with his torso
I
through the
know.
table. Yeah.
I Lance Henriksen with his head through a table.
Yeah.
So there was, from a plot standpoint, and everybody has their deal breakers, right? There's things that ruin their suspension of disbelief, and they're all different. And I have a lot of respect for how different they can be. But I have a problem when you depict a scientist, and she says, "We found these pictograms all over culture that describe the same thing." That's interesting. I'm interested.
Absolutely.
My ears perk up. Then she says, "Clearly, these are the people that engineered the human race." And I go, "What?"
Yeah.
And then they say, "How do you know that?" And she says, "It's what I choose to believe." And clearly, there's this whole God theme in this that just doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, that's at that point in the movie, I was like, wait, what? I mean, literally, I like it was the point in time which I would have looked over to the right to see the person I was going to the movie with to be like,
Right.
did I just miss something really important about aliens all this time?
No, and then as far as the scientists, it gets better because she and her hubby, her boyfriend, go on into the alien ship, which they find by looking left.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
They travel 2 years across space to land on a planet so they can look out and go, "Oh, there it is."
well.
Don't even get me started about that.
So they
get on
explained it at the end because when they said hey, there's a whole shitload more ships at the end. So maybe it's a whole planet
I
full
see.
of mass destruction weapons.
Could be.
I mean,
all right. Yeah, I see your point.
But it's convenient.
So
Convenience
then he goes
destroys
on the
movies
ship.
for
He
me.
wants to meet the engineers.
Yeah.
He goes on the ship and he finds a dead one.
and he's so disappointed.
And-
so disappointed.
And so he goes back and gets
Now
drugged
I'm
because they're
depressed.
all dead.
Now
Yeah,
I'm
like, what-
depressed.
what the-
It's the find of the millennium.
And you've only explored these ping pong balls you've got flying around are giving you a 3D model of the whole ship.
Yeah.
Have you not explored the rest of it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
These aren't things that scientists do in their brains.
but he got drunk because they needed to infect him.
I know
It's really obvious, Adam. Jeez.
That's where the script really made me mad. Is in all of those really clunky. And why did they need to infect him? By the way.
I don't have any idea
And then why did his infection take a different form than it did for the geologist?
because he drank it instead of having it. Oh wait.
But what the geologist
drank the
shows up
black
as
stuff,
some
right?
like creature with his
He
head
was a
over
zombie.
his
He was a
yeah,
zombie,
he
yeah.
was a
Yeah.
zombie with a big head. What was that?
Different strain of
And then
biological
what
weapon.
came out of her belly that grew into something different? That grew into
It was all
something
edible.
different
It was,
again.
it was a metaphor for.
It feels like there was weird because that was originally supposed to be 2 movies, right?
Oh really?
No, it's one movie.
Wikipedia said it was originally going to be 2 movies.
Oh.
Okay.
And And
I don't think that would have helped.
no, it would have just made more. It would have given more opportunity to explain stuff that didn't need to be explained or make sense.
Did you hear Ridley Scott's interview where he talked about Jesus being an engineer in that mythology?
Yes.
Yes.
No, I look. I could understand that. The problem I have is, so to me, all of those large scale gestures of engineers, of the bioengineering, of humans having a source and us going to find it, that's all terrific. Like great fodder for good meaty science fiction.
Yeah.
The way they did it is like, do you remember in Thank You for Not Smoking? You ever see Thank You for Not Smoking?
Thank you for smoking.
Thank You for Smoking, right.
Yeah.
And Thank You for Smoking, Rob Lowe and Aaron Eckhart are having a discussion about, well, can we get cigarettes into space? Yes, we can. And Rob Lowe goes, yeah, you can get them, and you can say, oh, thank God we can smoke in the space because of that blah, 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 blah we invented that allows us to smoke in space. And I felt like half of Prometheus was that.
It was. There was just no reason. Like I didn't understand why I was watching the movie.
I'm very much enjoying the fact that you're literally like 2 hours from having walked out of the theater, you're still speechless.
Yeah, because I was expecting. I mean, if you look at Alien, which is, it's almost unfair to compare a movie now versus then because it was a completely different Hollywood, and that was kind of the first of its kind in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But that movie had a lot of depth and a lot of complexity, and the characters all had very clear understanding of what they were doing and why they were doing it. And in this case, the characters came out and said why they were doing things, and then just did something completely different. Yeah. The geologist who turned into a zombie said, "I'm here for the money," and then behaved in a way that was completely counter to being with the money.
Explain to me how he got lost.
Yeah, I mean, why?
How did he get lost?
I don't understand why
he had his pups and they had a 3D model, and he's walking through it, and they can watch them moving on the model.
And the captain's like, "Oh, I'm going to let them get lost. They deserve it. They need a lesson taught to them."
And why?
And those two guys, hey, we have a bet. Okay, suicide pact.
And
high five.
Why was the big cart not still there when they came out? I mean, there's just massive plot holes.
Hey, you know what? It's the perfect movie for an apologist who wants to invent answers for movies. For someone go, but it could be this, like, the super nerd goes, I'm going to explain everything because this is how the director inferred it.
Honestly, had I not been known I was going to come here and talk about this, I probably would have walked out on the kind of gratuitous porn shot of the space jockey's seat at the end of when they did the big reveal. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, it's a astronaut helmet and it's crazy boom shot across the CG set, and I was just like, really, why is this even necessary? Leave us. There were plenty of questions left unanswered at the end of Alien and Aliens and even Alien 3, which is not a particularly good movie, but still, like, there's room for mystery and room for you to figure things out for yourselves, and there's things you're supposed to figure out and things you aren't, and there's none of that in this movie.
So I have a theory that occurs to me every few days, which is that when David talks to the engineer, thanks for not giving us a subtitle, by the way.
Yeah.
And says whatever he says.
He says, "This man."
I think he says, "This man is here to steal your magic. Please tear my head off and kill everyone else." I believe that that's what he actually says.
Right.
And the engineer's like, "Awesome."
Steal your magic. This old man here wants your magic.
And oh my God, that makes sense.
Right.
That actually makes sense.
There all of a sudden is a plan.
Yeah, okay.
That actually gives a driving force behind the movie. This whole thing of like all creations want to kill their master, and
well, that's a recurring theme in the Scott brothers' work.
I read Guillermo's statement about the plot being similar to Mountains of Madness, that the great creator is undone by their creation. But I don't think he has anything to worry about with this one. I don't think this movie touches on those grand themes with any real fire.
Ridley
or
Scott is
interest.
undone by Prometheus.
What's that? Yes, the creator undone by there. And I love Ridley Scott. If I ever met him and he listened to this and was mad about it, I'd feel terrible.
Yeah.
Because I revere him so much, and he's one of the reviews I read of it said, he's responsible for perhaps more iconic shots than any other director, and it's totally true. Just the composition of things that you never thought you'd see in a frame.
There was this article on the Sun Times blog about one frame in Alien where it's perfect. It's like about space, and you have all the human characters in one shot. where
Is it when
the
they pan
captain-
out of the bridge shot?
No, where the captain is, he has a facehugger on him, and you see his feet, and then you have the android and the other guy. They're talking about it, and the other crew behind the glass.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
people say that Ridley Scott directs like little dioramas, like he directs window displays, and he does a lot. I mean, he pays so much attention to.
The composition's beautiful, magnificent,
Yeah.
but the script is
Well, it's not his fault.
made me want to.
The story might be his fault, and there's potentially a good story there.
There is potentially,
And so maybe that's what's more disappointing, in that the potential is lost,
yeah.
and that's what we got.
Maybe what we need is a website devoted to taking movies like that. Here's the thing, right? Remember somebody said, why do they remake great movies? They're great. They never needed to be remade. Why do you take crappy movies and remake those?
Oh, that's a much better
So
idea.
Here's my idea. Someone turn this into a Kickstarter and make this happen. A fan fiction user-voted content site in which the plots are outlined. You just do a treatment of a redoing Prometheus from scratch. And the people who go on the site, so can't be longer than 4 pages, like a standard treatment size, beat by beat, scene by scene, lay out the characters if they're different. Whatever a studio would get as a treatment, right? Everyone submits, everyone reads, and the best ones make it to the top. And you get a top 3 different treatments for a reboot of Prometheus. And in 10 years,
when they're hunting.
when they're hunting around for some new franchise to exploit, the studios are like, we should do this. And this guy's contact information is right here. What do you think?
We shouldn't put this on the podcast.
The acting, Michael Fassbender was.
Everyone was.
They were all really good.
Yeah.
I thought Charlize Theron was a robot right up until the point that the captain said, "Hey, are you a robot?" And then I realized that probably wasn't true.
Also,
And you knew that Wayland was on the ship immediately.
you totally knew that. That scene between her and Idris Elba was weird. And it was just weird because of the way it played out. Now, I know that in the original script for Alien, there's some very interesting insight into what Ridley thought of as would be the natural sexual politics of being on a ship like that, which is that everyone kind of sleeps with everybody eventually.
Any port in a storm.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do when you're out
Space
at sea with
truckers.
8 people for several years. And that is, from a sociological standpoint, interesting to me. But their scene between them didn't have any. It didn't even seem like either of them was filling a biological need. It seemed more like a weird chess game.
Hey, we got 30 minutes to kill.
Let's take the 2 prettiest actors in the movie, and we'll tell you that they're going into another room to bone right now.
Yeah. Well, like you said, why would they do that? Doesn't make sense. I mean, and clearly there were other things that weren't people in the ship at that point? Weren't they the only
17 people.
Yeah, it seemed like there were too many people on that ship.
Right.
No, too few people on that for a ship that big.
But
Lots
if
of
you look
empty
at
rooms.
if you set the precedent made by the Nostromo, then no, it's not too few. 8 people or 7 people on the ship. It should work itself out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of robots and science and electronics and stuff. I don't know. I was really frustrated at the end of that movie.
Yeah, no, I'm still frustrated, and it's been 3 weeks since I've seen it.
So the other thing I really was impressed by was the locations they used. Because was the alien world, that wasn't all CG. That was some valley that they CG'd
Iceland.
up a little. It was Iceland. Okay,
Yeah.
It looked like a glacial kind of path that had been carved down through the valley. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, no, really beautiful locations that they used for that.
It's amazing that we have a planet that has locations that we can just readily substitute for alien worlds.
That water, or you can go to New Zealand, and they're all within like an hour of the production office.
Yeah, exactly.
That waterfall in the beginning is a valley in Iceland. Yeah.
Oh, that was in Iceland too. I thought that was.
I thought it was Victoria Falls.
Yeah, I thought it was Victoria Falls. Yeah. Which made sense because if he's the progenitor and it's Africa,
cradle of humanity. Is
Yeah.
exactly what I thought too. Yeah, Africa, center of Africa. Here we go.
yeah, Olduvai Gorge. Hi. So yeah, I was just. It was really pretty. It was a really pretty movie.
Right. My review of Prometheus is that it was pretty. The end.
Yeah, did not like.
Well, Madagascar 3 did make more money than an opening weekend, so
Did
there you go. It did.
well.
There were a bunch of people
There you
going to
go.
the Katy Perry movie this morning when I was in.
There's a Katy Perry movie.
There's a Katy Perry movie. Yeah, so it could be worse.
It could be worse.
Could be worse. I guess that'll do it for us. We went a little over, but I think that's fine. This was a worthy conversation. We'll be back next week with more of Still Untitled:
Still Untitled:
The Adam Savage Project.
Excellent.
See you guys later.
See you guys.